So you've been cooped up for 9 months on an extended furlough while your local representatives debate whether $600 is a suitable survival allowance for being such a good boy. And, to make matters worse, that friend of yours has been bugging you to join his Discord so you can play Dungeons & Dragons remotely every weekend. Or maybe you're from a better country where the rest of that was already resolved, but you and your friends can't afford a lavish tabletop set. In either case, let me show you how it's done. Your DM sent you a link to their game, and for that you'll need a Roll20 account. Once you're registered, open that link again, and you should now see a game added to your My Games tab. So just launch that bad boy and hop on in. What the? Stop trying to cop my flavor. Now that you're here, we've got a quick bit of housekeeping. Start by going to the top right and checking the Settings tab. Here, we've got access to a global volume slider that'll either make the backing track audible or less ear-shatteringly loud. Like the noise of my cat, your DM spent way too much time picking out this music, so just set it to a comfortable volume level before you go giving up on it. Down here, we've got a few things that'll vary depending on your group and your personal preferences. First is the audio setting. Are you guys chatting on a secondary program like Skype, Discord, or ham radio? If so, swap these tabs to off. If you plan on using Roll20 all the way from tabletop to voice comms, then go ahead and keep these on, and let me know what it's like being the astronomical minority of this community. Under video and avatar size, see what works best for you. Some people like keeping their profile pictures set to their character art, so you may enjoy seeing your cast of characters hanging out down there. Others, like myself, prefer to cut the clutter by setting this tab to Names Only. Now let's get back to the second tab up here, your journal. This is where you'll see everything from your character sheet to arts, notes, letters, and other handouts at the DM's discretion. Most importantly, you should also be seeing your character sheet here. If your DM's already seen my guide on setting up a campaign, you should have a blank character sheet up here ready for your grubby little paws. So go ahead and click on that. And if they don't, I don't know, text them and come back in 10 minutes. Your bio and info tab is a great place to copy-paste the 10-page Google Doc you wrote about your character's harrowing career in black market orphan wrestling. Or the first 30 minutes of Batman Begins. Heading over to character sheet, this is where the magic happens. I'm afraid I can't guide you through everything there is to know about building a character in 5e, or whatever system you're using, but I can tell you there's 2 ways to do it in Roll20. One is directly typing your stats and feats and other abilities into the sheet directly. The other is using the Charactermancer, which will hold your hand through every step for a much faster experience. I won't be covering the Charactermancer today, but just know that if you want to have a go at it yourself, you can go to the settings wheel up here and click Launch Level 1 Charactermancer. And know the permanence of your actions. As you build your character one way or another, you can save time on a few steps by making use of the Compendium tab up here. This comes in handy for spells and equipment, I find, and even if your DM doesn't own books like Xanathar's or the PHB, you'll still find several spells and items from the SRD available to click and drag right onto your sheet. Now that you've got a character all built up, test out a few of its features by making an ability check, saving throw, rolling initiative, swinging a weapon, or even casting a spell. Some people like the good old-fashioned feeling of rolling dice, and there's nothing wrong with being a liar who hides their rolls from the chat, but if you're an honest and God-fearing Christian, I think you'll find that the character sheet's built-in rolls are quite convenient. There's a couple settings you and your DM may find useful in the settings wheel up here on the character sheet, my favorite of which being these 2 right here. Always roll advantage, and auto roll damage. These will make it such that every roll will have 2 numbers. If you were actually rolling at advantage, you would just take the higher of the 2, and at disadvantage, you'd take the lower. But if it's an ordinary roll, just take the first number. If you've hit, go ahead and take the damage roll that automatically landed. Something to note for my D&D players is that if either of these numbers is a crit, you'll see the critical damage applied as a plus to your base damage roll. If you didn't actually score that critical, say if you had disadvantage or that crit came second on your regular roll, just take the first damage number and ignore the plus. If you want a breakdown of what dice rolls went into a damage roll, just hover over the number. This helps for fighting styles like great weapon fighting, which allow for a reroll for damage dice that got a 1 or a 2. The character sheet also automates the process of correcting your friends and info dumping on your DM mid-combat. By just clicking this little chat bubble icon next to any trait or feature, you and your fellow rules lawyers can subpoena everyone's eyes with a gratuitous wall of text. This also comes in handy when defending yourself against accusations of not being a team player or murdering everything without a second thought. See? You're not ruining everyone else's fun, you're just playing the character. Well, now that you've got a character sheet ready, let's talk about that token. Take your character art of choice and head over to rolladvantage.com/tokenstamp, where you can drag the image on and pick a border of your choice. I recommend picking one of the textured and shaded ones, or this one that's made to model the official tokens in Roll20. Save that PNG and send it to your DM. They'll want to set it as your primary token, which we'll fast forward and slap down right here. It's going to be up to your DM to add your token to the map for each encounter, and if you want the most out of your token, there's a couple things they'll need to do as well. They'll want to set up your vision settings to start. The other thing they'll want to do is set up your default token with health bars, AC, and passive perception. They can do this by following the steps I laid out in my Roll20 for DMs guide at this timestamp here. Now you should have a fully kitted out token, but how do you move it around? Start by making sure you've got the select tool up here. Now click and drag your token to set it somewhere else on the board. When moving your token, you're probably going to be keeping track of how far you go. Rather than counting the tiles, just pick it up and right-click to activate the ruler. When we reach a turning point, go ahead and right-click again to drop an anchor. Optionally, you can also head down to the ruler tool to measure the distance between any 2 points. For spells that measure an area of effect, you can use the Shapes tool to illustrate just how many acres of land you'd like to utterly annihilate. For graffiti, knock yourself out with the pen tool. Yes, everyone will see it. For custom rolls, like say anything that's not bound to your character sheet, use the dice tray. Here, you can select which dice you want and how many you'd like to roll. But for more fine-tuned dice rolls, I prefer to use the chat. Rolling in chat is as easy as typing \R, space, then how many dice you're rolling, which die it is, and what you'd like to add to it. For example, if I'm rolling a 20-sided die at a +3, I'd type \R, space, 1d20 + 3. Hit enter to send, and voila! Now say this is a common part of your gameplay, and you don't have the spell or equipment bound to your sheet. Hell, say you're not even using digital sheets and you just need to keep your rolls honest, Kevin. Well, head over to the macros bar, which looks like a bulleted list up here. Then, click Add Macro. Here, you can put in the same roll formula we just went over, and you'll have made a little button that automatically rolls that for you without having to type it over and over. Just click In Bar and look down at your screen to find the button. You can even color code them by right-clicking the macro button. Finally, let's see what else we can do with the chat. You can set who you're speaking as by navigating to this bar, which is great for framing your friend as an enemy of the state. If you want to add some emotive flair, try adding \EM to the line. Whispering is when you send a message purely to one person's chat. Perfect for sexting and plotting, but mostly for sexting. To whisper your diabolical plans to the DM, type \W space GM space followed by your message. And finally, to add some flair, you can italicize with asterisks, bold with 2 asterisks, and bold and italicize with 3 asterisks. Thank you guys very much for the comments that you've been leaving on some other videos. They've all been very, very supportive. I am sincerely thankful for them, and I really wish I had notifications turned on so I knew that I'd been getting them, because I kind of just checked my notification center after like 2 months and was overwhelmed. So I would love to make more of these. I'll do one on the Charactermancer soon, and I'll also do one on building maps and dynamic lighting for DMs in Roll20. I'll even do some on Foundry and how to make the swap between the 2 programs, but I think that's kind of been beaten into the ground by smarter people than I. Anyway, thank you, and stay tuned for more.